I thought it was just a box left on my doorstep. But every time I threw it away, another one came back. Each box had a photo of me, taken minutes before I woke up. Now, no matter where I go, there's always one waiting. Check your doorstep. It was a cold autumn morning, the kind where the air feels like it's been sharpened overnight. The kind of morning that makes you pull your coat tighter even inside your home. I remember that detail because everything about that day felt wrong before I even opened the door. When I first heard the knock, I thought it was the mailman. A single, dull thud, not a normal knock, but something heavier. I was half asleep, coffee still dripping in the kitchen, when I shuffled to the front door and pulled it open. And there it was. A small brown box. Unmarked. No tape, no label, no return address. Just sitting there like it had grown from the concrete overnight. I looked up and down the street, nothing. The road was empty except for the wind moving a plastic bag like a ghost with nowhere to go. I called out a tentative hello, but my voice sounded foreign in the silence. When I bent down to pick up the box, I noticed something else. The cardboard wasn't cold. It was warm. Like someone had just been holding it. Inside my house, I set it on the kitchen table and stared at it for a long time. You might think curiosity would take over instantly, but I hesitated. There was something almost alive about it. I can't explain why I thought that, only that my gut screamed at me not to touch it again. Still, I did. I opened the top, slowly peeling back the flaps. Inside was a single item, a Polaroid photograph. It was of my front door. The same one I had just opened minutes earlier. The angle was low, like someone had crouched in my yard to take it. The timestamp at the bottom said 2:46 a.m. I felt my stomach drop. I lived alone, and that meant whoever took this picture was standing outside my house less than 4 hours ago while I slept. I checked the locks. I checked the windows. Everything was sealed. My security camera at the porch? Still dead. The lens was cracked, a spiderweb of glass that hadn't been there yesterday. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my desk, the photograph lying face down beside my laptop. I tried to reason it out. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe some kid thought it'd be funny. But then I noticed something I hadn't before. On the back of the photograph, written in faded ink, was a short message. Don't throw it away. I wish I could tell you I listened. I wish I could say I understood what that meant. But I didn't. The next morning, I threw the photo and the box into the trash. I even took the bag straight to the dumpster behind the grocery store 3 blocks down. When I got home, I felt lighter, like maybe I'd buried the unease with the garbage. But that night, I heard the knock again. One thud. When I opened the door, there was another box. Identical to the first. And this time, there was more than just a photograph inside. That second knock didn't just wake me, it froze me. The sound wasn't just at the door, it was inside it, like something was pressing its ear against the wood and whispering through. I remember the clock. 2:17 in the morning. I was on the couch, half asleep with the TV murmuring static when I heard it. The same dull thud. My chest tightened. I already knew what I'd find before I opened the door. There it was again, the same brown box. Same size, same warmth seeping through the cardboard like it had a pulse. The same absence of labels, tape, or fingerprints. I should have called the police. I should have done a lot of things. But instead, I brought it inside. I didn't open it right away this time. I placed it on the table and sat across from it. The air felt thicker somehow, like the room was holding its breath with me. The hum of the refrigerator faded, the ticking clock slowed, and all I could hear was my heartbeat. Then, from inside the box, came a soft, fluttering sound. Not scratching, not tapping, fluttering. Like paper being shuffled, or wings beating against a wall. I stepped closer. The sound stopped. I lifted the lid. Inside, there were 2 Polaroid photographs this time. Both were new. Both were taken from the same crouched angle as before. The first was of me, standing in the doorway, holding the first box. The second one made me drop the photo. It was of me again, but this time, taken from inside the house. Over my shoulder. You could see the back of my head, my hand gripping the doorknob. The timestamp read 2:16 a.m. 1 minute before I'd heard the knock. I stumbled backward, my breath catching in my throat. My first instinct was to turn around, to check behind me, but I couldn't. I just stood there staring at that photo, my pulse roaring in my ears. Finally, I turned. No one was there. But there was something else, written in that same faded ink on the back of the second photo. It's cold outside. Can I come in? I didn't move. I couldn't. I remember the silence stretching so long that it started to buzz in my head. Then, from the hallway, I heard the softest whisper. It wasn't loud, but it was clear, like someone leaning close to your ear in a dream. It said my name. Just my name. Once. That was when I ran. I grabbed my keys and bolted for the car without even locking the door. I drove to my brother's house across town and didn't go home for 3 days. When I finally did, the house felt like a stranger's. The smell was wrong, damp, metallic, faintly sweet, like rain and old dust. And on the floor by the door, where the second box had been, there was a small, dark stain. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Just spilled coffee, maybe. But deep down, I knew better. That night, I moved the couch in front of the door. I didn't want to hear another knock. But around 3 in the morning, I woke to the sound anyway, not from the door this time, but from the window. A single tap. Then a whisper. You shouldn't have left me outside. I don't remember falling asleep that night. I remember the window tapping, the voice that whispered my name, and then, nothing. Like my memory skips a frame. When I woke up, the sun was already high, spilling through the blinds, and the room was unbearably warm. The first thing I noticed was that the couch I had pushed against the door was gone. Not moved. Gone. In its place was another box. This one wasn't brown anymore, it was black. The cardboard looked soaked through, though the floor beneath it was perfectly dry. I didn't want to open it. God, I didn't even want to look at it. But I couldn't ignore it either. I grabbed a towel, wrapped it around my hand, and lifted the lid. Inside was a tape recorder, an old, rectangular one with the kind of buttons you had to push down hard to make them click. There was a cassette inside, already labeled in neat handwriting, "Play Me." My stomach turned. The last time someone left me a message, it had whispered my name through the wall. I almost threw the thing away right then, but curiosity is a cruel thing. It always whispers louder than fear. I pressed play. At first, nothing. Just the hiss of static. Then, faintly, a voice, mine. It's cold outside. Can I come in? I froze. The voice on the tape wasn't a recording of me speaking, it was me breathing. Slow, ragged, terrified. Then came a second voice. Soft. Female. Almost kind. I was inside once. I stopped the tape and stumbled back, the recorder slipping from my hands and clattering to the floor. I unplugged it, pulled the batteries out, even threw it in the sink. But even with the batteries gone, I could still hear something faint from inside the recorder, a whisper too soft to make out, but steady, rhythmic, like breathing. That was when the doorbell rang. A single, shrill chime. I backed away, shaking. The last time there was a knock, it was followed by something worse. But this sound, it wasn't a knock. It was almost polite. I forced myself to peek through the peephole. At first, I saw nothing but glare. Then, as my eyes adjusted, I saw a shape. A person, small, hunched, wrapped in a coat too large for their body. Their face was hidden by the brim of a hood. They weren't moving, just standing there, head tilted like they were listening to the other side of the door. I whispered, "Who's there?" The figure tilted its head further, almost upside down, and I heard the faintest voice through the wood. "You left me in the dark." The words slid under my skin like cold water. I stepped back, heart pounding so loud it felt like it might shake the door. Then, the knocking started. Not slow. Not rhythmic. But constant. Frantic. Like fists pounding to be let in. I screamed that I was calling the police, but the knocking didn't stop. It only grew louder, deeper, like it was coming from all around me. From the walls, the floor, even the ceiling. I grabbed my phone, dialed 911, but the line went dead before I could speak. The knocking stopped. I didn't realize I was crying until I saw the drops hit the floor. I turned toward the window, and saw the reflection of the door behind me. It was open. Just an inch. I turned back. The door stood slightly ajar, the light from outside spilling in. But there was no one there. And on the threshold, where the boxes had always been, sat the tape recorder, its play button pressed down on its own. Through the hiss and static, my own voice whispered again. "You let me in. If you're listening to this, I need you to understand something. This isn't a story about fear anymore. It's about consequence." After the door opened by itself that night, I stopped trying to explain anything. There was no logic left, just the feeling that something had decided I was part of its unfinished business. I left my house at dawn. Didn't pack. Didn't lock the door. Just left. I drove until the gas light came on, ended up at a motel off Route 31. I paid cash. The woman behind the desk didn't even ask for ID, she just looked at me like she knew. The room was small, old, smelling of mildew and cigarette burns. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the door. The paint around the knob was chipped, and the lock barely held. I tried to convince myself it was over. But that night, as I started to drift to sleep, I heard it again. That single, dull thud. I froze. My body felt disconnected, like I was watching myself from somewhere else. The sound came again, louder. I turned toward the door, heart hammering, and saw a shadow under the crack of light. Someone, or something, was standing outside. I whispered to myself, "You're dreaming. You're not here." But the voice outside whispered back, "Then where are you?" The doorknob twitched. Just once. Then again. Slowly turning, metal scraping softly against the wood. I grabbed the bedside lamp and raised it like a weapon, backing up until I hit the far wall. The knob stopped turning. Silence. Then a sound I'll never forget, a deep exhale, like a sigh of relief, just on the other side of the door. Then, a whisper. "You let me in once. You can't close it now." The lights flickered. The room seemed to bend, the corners stretching farther away. For a moment, I felt like I wasn't standing in that motel room anymore. The wallpaper was gone. The air was cold. And when I looked down, I was standing on my own porch again. The door in front of me was my door, the one from home, splintered and familiar, with that same faint stain on the floorboards. And sitting at my feet, another box. It was open. Inside, there were Polaroids scattered like dead leaves. Each one showed the same thing, me, asleep. In one, I'm lying on the couch. In another, in the driver's seat of my car. In another, at the motel. Each timestamp was only minutes before I woke up. And at the very bottom, there was one more photograph. It wasn't of me. It was of a door, half open. Light pouring out from the crack. And in that light, the faint outline of a person, head tilted, smiling. I dropped the photo. The light vanished. The door slammed shut with a force that shook the walls. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the motel room. But the door, the motel door, was wide open now. The hallway was empty. Silent. On the floor just outside, something small and brown waited for me. A box. No writing. No tape. No label. Just a single Polaroid resting on top. It was blank, completely white, except for a handwritten note beneath the glossy surface. It said, "Check your doorstep." I didn't. I couldn't. But when I checked out the next morning and went to my car, there was another box waiting on the hood. I don't live anywhere anymore. I keep moving, changing towns, motels, names. But every morning, no matter where I am, when I open the door, there's always a box. And it's always warm.